So the Bengals drop an embarrassing one to the Ravens on the weekend, 24-0, and that ultimately seals their window and playoff opportunity for the 2025 season. With the banter that's going on social media right now about the organization, Joe Burrow's future, this team's future, we got a lot to talk about in the show. So let's get into it, guys. What's going on, guys? Appreciate you guys tuning in. It's 4th and Whodey. I'm your host, Corey. If you guys tuned in before, I appreciate that. And if you're new, please go ahead, give the channel a like and subscribe if you enjoy the content. We got multiple topics to touch on today. And obviously, the one that's been circling Twitter recently is just the anger and frustration with the organization itself. The fact that we're out here witnessing a third straight season with no playoff appearance. We're wasting Joe Burrow's career is becoming more real and real every single day. So where do we begin? First thing I want to take a look at is obviously what I touched on in the last video, and that's Duke Tobin and Zack Taylor, and if they deserve to be, in the GM spot, director of player personnel, in the head coach spot moving into next season. It's an obvious no for me, and I don't think much more needs to be said based on that. You've had ample amount of time to correct some of the problems that we've had the past years, and these problems have just multiplied. They haven't gotten better. And I think if you're looking for anything, it's improvement, right? Improvement that you haven't seen and you're just not getting from this front office. Now, you're going to get a lot of people that are like, well, that's the front office. They're not going to change. Well, I don't know what to tell you, but being a Bengals fan for the last 20 years, when I started, I was younger, might have been a little bit more naive as a child, but in my 30s now, I don't think I'm going to be supporting a team that's not going to be supporting the players and ultimately doing what they can to win as an organization. And it hits even harder now as an adult seeing this, and it's even more frustrating. So let's take a look at Joe Burrow this past week and his presser and all the speculation around it. You have people putting up trade talks and trade scenarios for Joe Burrow, which we know that's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. Joe Burrow is one of one, and the Bengals organization is stubborn. They're not just going to trade him and move on. It's not how it's going to work. So we saw what happened with Carson Palmer, and I think his comments when they made the Super Bowl a couple years ago are becoming more and more real. And at the time, we thought, this is just a disgruntled Carson Palmer, what he went through. This isn't the same organization anymore. We're changing. We have Joe Burrow. Things are going to be better. We're going to be battling for Super Bowls for years to come. Well, it's kind of funny now watching his comments, and I want to go back to that because they're sounding more and more real with how things are playing out here. And I think we're sitting here giving the guy the credit to be the one to go through this himself. And I think that's the thing that stands out is this isn't the first time this organization has handled something this way. This has happened before with a quarterback that was a first overall pick by the Bengals, with a quarterback that had the same frustrations. And we're all afraid that it's going to get to the same point with Joe Burrow, right? So let's kind of take a look at that video again from Carson Palmer during the Bengals Super Bowl run and what he had to say, and kind of give this a little bit more context if you guys haven't seen the video.
What is it like for you being here with the Bengals in the Super Bowl?
It's so exciting. Nobody saw this happening. You talk about this roster back in September. Nobody thought Joe was coming off an ACL. They couldn't protect him in 2020 2020. Are they going to be able to protect him in 2021? They barely did. He got sacked 9 times against Tennessee in the AFC Championship. But there's just something magical about this team.
Yeah.
That state of Ohio, from the north where Cleveland is, all the way down the southeast where Cincy is a desperate, rabid fan base. They are intense. They are passionate. They show up. And you go, I mean, 10 years ago when Cleveland was winning 2 and 3 games a year, the Dog Pound was sold out. That stadium was sold out. The Bengals stadium is sold out. Those fans show up. Those fans watch everything.
Yeah.
They are into it. They are focused on the Bengals. They are focused on the Cleveland Browns in that state. And so for the Bengals to be here, the excitement in downtown Cincinnati and just all over Southern Ohio, if they can win this game, it's the David and Goliath story. Yeah. It's the team of, L.A., the glitz, the glamour. Aaron Donald's a future Hall of Famer. Andrew Whitworth, Jalen Ram. I mean, they got the best of the best at a number of positions. And you can't say that about the Bengals. They are a true underdog, true David and Goliath story. If they can win this game and take a championship trophy and do that championship parade in downtown Cincinnati, that place is going to go bananas.
I want to ask you if you are in some ways living vicariously, if you feel like they're here and representing your generation of Bengals and previous generation of Bengals. But I also do remember that, and I'm fond of saying everything ends badly, otherwise it wouldn't end. It didn't end well with the Bengals, in the retirement and the trade to the Raiders. What is your relationship with the franchise and the organization and the community?
I don't have any relationship with the franchise, but I have a great relationship. We've got great friends, folks that live in our neighborhood, went to our church, kids' school. I mean, I'm back in Cincinnati 2-3 times a year.
Okay.
But I don't have a relationship with the front office.
Gotcha.
And just, you know Michael Smith for a long time. You haven't known me that long. So I just feel compelled to tell you.
Full disclosure.
I've been so critical of the Cincinnati Bengals all year long. Michael hasn't. But part of it has been the organization, saying like the organization, I think I said they don't want to win. I've criticized the scouting, the whole operation. Am I wrong? Do you think I'm wrong?
No. I think one of the best storylines is what happens the day after the Super Bowl, because the Bengals are in an interesting situation organizationally. They've got Joe Burrow, who's eligible for a new contract in 2 years. Joe Burrow's sitting there going, we got $60 million in cap space. Are they going to sit on 40 of it and frugally spend 20? Or are they going to go after and build this thing around me and build this thing around my future contract that I'm probably going to sign in 2024, 2025? Or are they happy? Are they cool with, we got to the Super Bowl, whether they win this game or not? Are they okay with that? Are they like, man, that's a win, we got to the Super Bowl?
Yeah.
Or are they like the LA Rams, pursuing and doing whatever it takes to get to the Super Bowl? Look what the Rams have done. That is the exact opposite of how the Bengals have been built, or the Bengals have never done what the Rams have done. They've traded away draft picks. They've made big splashes in free agency. They've got the best defensive tackle in the game, the best corner in the game. I mean, you can go across that roster, and how those guys got here is not just sitting in the draft and hoping somebody falls to them.
Yeah.
They have pursued the pieces that they've added to the puzzle. So I think they're in an interesting spot. I mean, I think Joe's going to sit back after this game, win or lose, and be like, man, am I going to re-sign with this team? Are they willing to do what it takes to continuously build to get back to the next Super Bowl next year and the year after that and the year after that? How are they willing to structure salary cap wise to be able to afford me, but to also be able to afford Jamar Chase when he comes up, or T. Higgins, or maybe even redo this offensive line that's given up a league leading 54 sacks, I believe, this year. That's an issue. And I know it's easy to say, well, that's the offensive line that got him to the Super Bowl. But Joe's not thinking about this one Super Bowl. Joe is thinking about getting 7.
Yeah.
He's got 7 on his radar because that's the number he needs to beat. And he knows that in order for him to re-sign, he's got a ton of leverage.
Yeah.
And this organization needs to show they're going to beef up the scouting department, something I wasn't able to get done when I ran through that wall that I ran through.
And you wanted to. You wanted them to do that. Is that one of the things you put on the list?
Yeah, I mean, I was dumb. I didn't have it put on paper. I didn't have, you need to hire a GM, you need to improve the scouting department, you need to get our facilities up to par with everybody else's. We need, every other team has chiropractors and physical, all these different things. And there was a verbal agreement. Joe needs to get that on paper. They need to show and prove that they are willing to do what it takes to get Joe 7 or Chase 7 the next Super, whatever that is. And they that if history is any sign of repeating itself, then, Joe's in an interesting situation in 2 years when he's up for a contract. If they haven't fortified that offensive line, if they haven't spent all the money they had, they got $58 million in cap space. Are they going to go out and use it correctly, or are they going to sit on half of it?
Is this really a new day? Sidebar. Excuse me for a second.
Sidebar.
I've never been more proud of a question.
So there's that clip from Carson. Obviously rings even more true now today, and it's actually kind of crazy playing that back and hearing what he has to say, but it's remarkable. He's literally talking about, are they going to be like the Rams, and are they going to do what it takes to win? And I look at where the Rams are today versus the Bengals. Like, both teams were in that Super Bowl, and it's night and day. And once again, that organization has done what it needs to do. They've drafted well, they've developed well, and they're right back in that number one seed in the NFC. And that's the difference. Like, having the conversation of bringing back guys like Duke Tobin and Zack Taylor, it shouldn't even be tabled based on the results that we've been getting. And it's crazy to see that that's even tolerated by an organization that has a quarterback like Joe Burrow and players like Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. It's nuts, but it is wild to see all of that come true. What Carson was saying there, somebody who went through it and talking about, put these things on paper. And it doesn't look like Burrow, when he signed his contract, got that stuff on paper. Now you have this guy going publicly onto shows, trying to vouch for this organization to sign players. And they've done that, but they've only signed the players that you should have been signing in the first place, signing them late when you could have got ahead of the curve, and just how they handle every bit of optics when it comes to football it's quite embarrassing, to say the least. But going into some of the stories that I wanted to talk about, if you take a look at some of the teams in the league currently right now, where they were and where they got to, I think is kind of important, because we talk about, them changing their head coach and trying to move in a better direction. Well, let me show you exactly what that can do for a franchise, right? So we look at the teams that are in the top of the league right now. You have your one seed in the AFC being the Denver Broncos. A couple of years ago, the Denver Broncos were the laughingstock of this league. They got 70 points put on them by the Miami Dolphins. They had Russell Wilson, who was a complete embarrassment at quarterback, and this team was a laughingstock of the NFL. But in only 3 short years, they completely turned that around, and now they're the number one seed in the AFC. I wonder how they did that. Well, one, they got a real head coach in Sean Payton, a guy who's been there, a guy who's done that. 2, they've drafted and they developed and they hit on free agency. They've done everything they've needed to bring this team to where it is today, and that's just not something the Bengals have done, nor do they care to show interest in. So you have it right there, and the Broncos don't even have a top 5 quarterback at the helm. The rookie quarterback in Bo Nix, who I'd say is top 10 at best. And the rest of that team is just manufactured so well because they actually give a shit about winning in that organization. And that's the product. You pay a good head coach, you get good players in that organization, and this is what you get. And you don't even have to look far to see more of these instances. You got the Patriots. They were a bottom 5 team last year. What they do, they got a competent head coach. Now they're the 2nd seed in the AFC. And we go to the 3rd seed, the Jaguars. What they do, they brought in a head coach in the offseason, and look at them. They're 10-4. They're the talk of the league recently, and it shows you what a head coach can do for an organization. Then you go down, you got the Chargers. A couple years ago, the same thing. They had Brandon Staley as the head coach. They were a laughingstock. I think the saying was the Chargers are going to charge, right? Because they were garbage. They were the laughingstock. I think the Raiders put like 65 points on these guys at one point. It was a joke. So what they do, they went out, they got a head coach as well, somebody who's done it before, Jim Harbaugh. And it's just like, I think we see what the secret sauce is here, guys. You have to get somebody who's going to be a good head coach, somebody who's going to change the culture, somebody who's going to hold these guys accountable. You don't want to see the same garbage that you're seeing from Zack Taylor in these press conferences every fucking week. I know I can't watch it anymore. How do you think the players feel having to go play for this guy? And one of the things I kind of wanted to show, there's a clip here of some of the stuff that Zack Taylor's kind of been spewing. I don't know how you get behind this guy here.
What is your message to the fans?
Just hang with us. It's been frustrating.
Zach, at 3-8, what are y'all building momentum for?
To just find a win. Find a way to win and keep finding ways to find a win. We got to win. We're talking about pressure. Do you feel any extra pressure this week because you guys could be eliminated from playoff contention if you lose?
I think someone needs to step up and lead the group. That's what I'm waiting to see. Someone step up and lead the group and take some accountability over there. Humbling, and we're going to have to really dig deep to bounce back next week. And again, we got a long season left to go, a lot of opportunity. I'm excited to see how these guys respond. We've scored 3 points 3 weeks in a row in the first half. That you're not going to win. You're not going to win against these teams we've been playing against. Just sick after that loss. It's sick. It's sick to lose like that. It's an awful.
That dude is not the guy that's going to be leading you to a Super Bowl, I'll tell you that much. And he should have been gone last year. I don't know why they gave him a chance this year, but now you got fans that are obviously pissed off, players that are pissed off, and I think this is the lowest of lows here with this organization, and you got to do something about it. There's no way that he should be leading this team next year. And quite frankly, I don't know how he's still coaching right now. It makes no sense to me that this man has a job. And that's not just to spew hatred. It's just the incompetence and how sad and pathetic this team has been over the course of the last 2 years. It's remarkable. But one of the things that I think coming out of that Joe Burrow press conference and where he's at, I think a big thing I want to touch on is simply the lack of recognition that he's receiving for what he's doing. So one of the main topics from this past weekend are the stats from Trevor Lawrence, right? And what he did against that Jets team. First, we're going to start by saying that's the Jets, right? No remarkable feat there. But did he have one of his best days in the league? Yeah, he absolutely did, statistically. And the only way you get that recognition is if you win the game. If you're putting up stats and your teams are losing, you just don't get that same recognition. And what do professional athletes do, right? They work hard to get the recognition, and the highest form of recognition is a Super Bowl trophy. And all these individual accolades and everything, it's the same reason that Burrow takes the awards for comeback player of the year so significantly, because they mean something. He's worked hard to receive something like that. They want recognition, right? So when we take a look at Trevor Lawrence's stats here from this past weekend, one of his best games of his career, if not his best, right? So we're going to take a look at the stats. 20 for 32, 330 yards with 5 touchdowns. He also added 1 on the ground. He was 5 for 51. Pretty incredible day for Trevor Lawrence. And then you look at the rest of the season, he hasn't had a game the rest of the year where he even cracked 300 yards. And we're talking about this Jags team as being truly remarkable. And then you go and you look at the opponents. It's like Arizona, Tennessee, Indianapolis, the Jets. Like, yeah, you're beating bad teams at the same time. And we're talking about Trevor Lawrence in this light where it's like, wow, this is the Trevor Lawrence that we're talking about. Yeah, that's great. It's one game against the Jets. Things I want to point to is like Joe Burrow has these stretches, and we can go back to a stretch of 8 games that he had last year. This dude does that on a consistent basis, game in, game out, every single year, and he doesn't get the recognition. We can go back 1 week to that Bills game, and if it wasn't for those interceptions, we could look at the stats from that game, and he was 25 for 36, 284 yards, and 4 touchdowns in a losing effort. And we're not talking about him in the same light. And it's because the team is losing. You only get that recognition when your team is winning. So to think, okay, we're at this point where he does this on a regular basis, but he never gets the appreciation for that because we can't talk about their team being successful. Therefore, he doesn't get looped in with that. It's sad. And I mean, how much can a professional athlete take? Like, it's been multiple years of this stuff. He was an MVP caliber quarterback last year. And if it wasn't for the losing, he should have won it. And every time he steps out on that field, that's the same quarterback you're going to get. And I think it's frustrating to watch kind of how this organization doesn't support him. And when we look at what Carson Palmer was saying, like clamoring for them to develop their scouting department and actually get a GM, not just director of player personnel. This is the big leagues, the NFL, and you have like 8 people in your scouting department. Meanwhile, people have 20, 30, 40. They aren't even showing up to the biggest games in college football to scout some of these players. It's actually ridiculous. So at what point do we go, okay, why are we as fans spending our money on this team when they don't even want to invest their own money into creating a good product for us? It doesn't make any sense. So the frustration all around, it needs to be addressed by this organization. And if you run it back next year with the same shit, I just don't see how you hang on to a handful of the fans that are out there currently. Because I don't know how you get behind the same shit over and over and over again. It's crazy. So I know all of us are frustrated, and we're just hoping that the end of the year on that Black Friday when the season ends, Zach's gone, Duke's gone. But I mean, we can only wish at this point, right? But to see that they're actually still playing Joe Burrow and these guys the rest of the year makes absolutely no sense to me. You have nothing to play for. You're risking injury. And at this point, we need the highest draft pick we can get because this organization clearly doesn't know how to draft players, right? It's the only way we landed Burrow Chase is because we had a top 10 draft pick, and that's how we got good players. So, I don't know. You guys leave your comments down below. I'm curious to see where your head is at on this organization and what the Bengals need to do moving forward. So, appreciate you guys tuning in. Catch you guys on the next one. See you later.
In the dead of the night, I have these dreams. What'll happen to me? Will I burn out?